everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Off the Cuff podcast, where we bring you inspiring conversations with industry leaders, innovators, and changemakers. I am Nandini alongside Nipun and Divyansh. Today, we have a special guest, someone who has revolutionized the gaming industry with his unique approach to distribution and monetization. Joining us is Yashash Agarwal, co founder and CEO of Gamezop, a platform that brings gaming to apps and websites worldwide. He's also behind Qzop, Astrozop, Feedzop, and Crickzop, expanding digital engagement beyond gaming. Recognized in Forbes India 30 under 30 and Fortune 40 under 40, honored by Narayan Murthy, he's a true innovator. Yashash, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and you're very kind with your introduction. But thank you so much. Looking forward to speaking to all of you.
Can you tell us about your journey of founding Gamezop and what's the story behind the name? Like, how did you come up with this innovative name, Gamezop?
Right. So I'll start with the journey behind Gamezop. I recall very clearly, somewhere in the broadly the same age gap as you guys are in now. I think it was first year of college. Interestingly, what happened in our year. I was in SRCC, so it was a BCom honors program, and in our year, DU had this thing called a 4-year program, right? So they were trying to do a 4-year undergraduate degree, and I think it was a new program, and it was going through its own set of experiments, and the essential outcome was that a lot of students found a lot of time on their hands, right? So we had all just done our boards and prepared really, really hard to get into good colleges. And then we suddenly found a lot of time on our hands. And luckily enough, for me, our college was a little lenient when it came to things like attendance. So it gave a good sort of a opportunity for me to try out different things. Much like you said, there are case study competitions. There are often business plan competitions. So I think there was always a desire to sort of try and do something of your own. So it maybe sometimes individually or with friends, we'd sort of get together, prepare a business plan, pitch it at events. And it was an interesting thing to do. And it is during the course of one such, I would say, so loosely there were some thoughts around thoughts or observations you could say around the gaming space, and most of the pitches that we would do at startup events also would broadly be in this industry and sector. It kind of helped refine a little bit of our thoughts in what may work in gaming, what may not work in gaming. But yeah, it it started during our college days. There was a basic insight, I'd say, or an observation behind the founding of GameStop. The insight was that if you look at online entertainment, you can broadly categorize it into a few different entertainment formats. So there is video entertainment, which is one form of entertainment. It could be short form, like your Instagram stories or Snapchat stories. It could be long form, like Netflix and say Amazon Prime or OTT and so on, right? But video is one format of entertainment. Similarly, there's audio. So you have songs, you have podcasts, you have so on and so forth. You could have text, which is another format. So people spend a lot of their online entertainment time either reading blogs or on Reddit or say news and so on, right? Maybe ebooks. And then finally, there's gaming, right? So audio, video, text, and gaming, right? There are these four different formats. And the insight was that except for games, for the rest of the other three, like for video, audio, and text, there are platforms which made it very easy for people to consume content, right? What I mean by that is you don't have to download one app for every new video, right? Like if you have YouTube and let's say today some new movies trailer comes out, you can just watch it with one click of a button on the YouTube app, right? Or if you have a news app, you don't download every single new article as an app, right? You can just easily access it on the existing app or the platform that you have. But that wasn't the case for games, right? And even to date, it's not really the case for games. If you want to play a game, you have to go to the App Store or the Play Store, download a game. If you get bored, you sort of uninstall it, go again. It's a longer journey, right? There's more steps involved. As a consumer, we may think, "Acha, theek hai, this is the way we do it, and it's okay." But imagine for once if you had to actually, on Instagram, if you could see people's stories, But when you clicked on them, you were taken to the App Store and you had to download an app and then watch one story and then delete the app and then watch another story by downloading another app. It's a little bit like that, right? Like that's the way games are consumed even today. So the question that we had for ourselves, so there are two co-founders at Gamezop, my brother and I. My elder brother, his name is Gaurav. But yeah, the question that Gaurav and I had for ourselves essentially was, is there a business that we can build by removing the friction of app installs, at least from simple casual games, right? Games don't even have a language barrier, right? Like if I give you a book written in a language that you don't understand, you could read it once, you could read it 100 times, you would not understand what's written, right? But if I gave you a game that was built by a developer in a language that you don't understand, right? Like let's say that even the buttons of the game were in some foreign language, you could still, get around the game, thoda trial and error, you will understand what's happening. So we felt that gaming is a large industry. It's free of language barriers. It's in a state where content consumption is not very frictionless. And maybe there's a business that we can build by making it a little bit more frictionless, right? So that's how broadly sort of the idea behind Gamezop came about through this insight. I was in college when we started. My brother was working at Bain and Company. Incidentally, around the same time, he was also a part of some studies which revolved around Flash and how Flash was declining, which was an erstwhile, I would say, piece of technology that powered a lot of media on the web. And yeah, I would say the timing was right, coincidentally, where he thought that, this whole casual gaming space is ripe for disruption. And that's how we started. As for the name, it actually does not have any super special meaning. I think it's easy to pronounce. It sounds like a very positive, sort of a word, and that's about it. Unfortunately, there's no interesting story behind the name Games of.
Let out, but it's fun. So now let's move on to the next question. So I heard that while you were still in college, you started a company called Pocket Art. So that must have been quite an very big experience. So what were some of the biggest challenges you faced back then? And what were the key lessons you took away from that experience?
Yeah, I think so. Pocket Art was also one such thing, right? Like I believe earlier when we were just chatting, you mentioned IIM Ahmedabad and the competitions that happened there. So similarly, it was one another idea that we sort of had where the thought was, can you have advertisements converted into games so that when users play games, you are sort of guaranteeing attention to the advertiser, right? Like, for example, let's say if I'm watching TV and an advertisement comes on, the advertiser has no guarantee that the person's actually watching the ad, right? I might be looking elsewhere or whatever. Uh, I mean, like the way reality plays out with this is that all of these are factored into broad numbers and averages. But yeah, like back then, the thought with Pocket Ad was, can you sort of turn ads into games? Again, broadly to do with the gaming space. And yeah, I think it was a fun experience. We took it, beyond just startup competitions. We had a small team, built an app, made it live. It was also interesting because, I was essentially a commerce student, and there was a lot of unknowns in building an app and sort of doing something which was a lot more tech heavy. But yeah, eventually, I think uh, I could say that we decided that there were some challenges with the business that it ended up becoming a little bit more service oriented. We would have to go to advertisers. We would tell them that, look, we'll make an ad out of your game. We'd make a game out of your ad. And so we would be doing this very, it wasn't a super scalable model, I'd say, because every brand would have a different requirement and they'd say, make a game like this, make a game like that. And we essentially became a service company making games, which was not what we wanted to be, right? And then after Pocket Ad is when we started Gamezop, where the idea was not to have ads as games, but ads which is more commonly practiced in games, and the games themselves should be super fun, right? Like when you make a game out of an ad, it's also like, one is that it's a bit of a service model and you're sort of talking to brand managers and building games for them, etc., etc. One is that side of things. The other side of things is that it's not essentially going to be fun for the user also to play, right? Like you want a game that users really want to play for long durations, but it's hard to do that if an ad is turned into a game. So yeah, Gamezop addresses that a little bit. It's a platform where you can play fun games and you would have ads interspersed for monetization. Yeah.
That was a very good answer, like how you converted the ideas you made for case competitions or business plan competitions into a real life company. I think that is a takeaway that lots of students can take.
Yeah, I think given that I was also a student back then, I think one of the takeaways, which one of the learnings which I did not have at the point of starting the first venture, which would have been very valuable then, is to, so when you're starting something, you're super passionate and you're always sort of biased towards thinking that this is definitely going to work and this is the next big thing. And I mean, you should have that kind of an attitude and that energy, but it's also extremely important to think deeply about whether what are the practical problems associated with any idea that you might have, and how it would scale. And an easy way to achieve that is to talk to others who are in the same industry, to openly discuss your idea in as much detail as you can, saying that this is what I'm going to do and what are the challenges that you can think about or around this business model. A lot of times people think that, if I share my business idea, somebody else will copy it.
Hmm.
That's not really true, right? Like, see, if you're gonna make a business, you will eventually release it someday, and then people will get to know of your idea, right? So it's also important to plan, even if everybody knows about my idea, what is it that I know, or what is it that I bring to the table that makes it hard for somebody else to do what I can do, right? That becomes an important part of, having that competitive edge as well. So yeah, I think that is one takeaway that I had later on, which would have been helpful at the point of starting the first venture.
In today's world, technology is evolving rapidly. So I would like to know how technology has shaped the gaming industry, and especially Gamezop, and what recent shifts in gaming industry and culture or tech that excites you the most.
The whole gaming industry exists on the fact that, I mean, the modern gaming industry at least, right, like exists to a large part on the back of ever improving hardware and ever improving graphics and ever improving monetization techniques. And all of these are influenced deeply by advancements in technology. So there's traditional technology as we know it. Like, let's say there's improving graphics cards and there's improving network speeds, which allow for things like, say, cloud gaming and so on, right? Cloud gaming, even now, I wouldn't say it's anywhere near its full potential, but to simplify it once, what cloud gaming essentially is that, and I'll come back then to your question also. But what cloud gaming is that, like, let's say today, if you have to play a really high-end game on your laptop, then your laptop needs to have a very good graphics card and a processor and all of that to run the game. What cloud gaming does is that, imagine there's a server, and on that server the game is running. And in a simplified way, you could say that when you press any key on the keyboard, that input is going to the server. It plays the game there, and it shows you like like you and I are talking right now on a video call. So your video is being streamed to me. So similarly, that server where the game is being played, that game's video is streamed to the user. So it removes the need for very high-end hardware for a user, but allows them to still play very high-end games, right? And this is something that technology, with time, I think, will revolutionize in the gaming space also. But yeah, I'd say in terms of how technology is changing gaming, something that I'm super excited about, I think that was also a part of your question, is, I mean, all the recent advancements in AI, I think they're very, very interesting. Uh, See, typically, with gaming, what would happen is the really big, large games that we know of, like the GTAs of the world, or the Call of Duties of the world, right? Like these kinds of games, they took so much investment to be built. You would have to have very large studios, very, very specialized artists and game designers and economy planners and so many other things to be able to build a game like that. But now what's happening is that with specialized AI tools, you can have really good graphics, and it could be a very small team pulling it off. You could have very, very personalized experiences. In bigger games, at least, you could have all the NPCs, like the basically the characters that you interact with inside the games, they could be a lot more dynamic, a lot more unscripted, a lot more personalized, essentially making you feel like the game that you're playing is deeply, deeply personalized for you. So I think the way I mean, the way I see AI tools improving by the day, I think what it's going to do for gaming is that cost of producing games will go down. It'll become easier for small teams to come up with really large, small smart teams to come up with really big, large games. Um, yeah, I think I mean, there's several things that are happening in the world of gaming from a technological standpoint. There's obviously blockchain gaming, and there's AR and VR and cloud gaming and so on. But if there's one that I'm super excited about, I'd say it's, I'm very curious to see how the use of AI transforms the kind of games that we play and we see coming out of, especially out of smaller studios.
Insightful and new for all of us to learn. My next question is that you started your entrepreneurial journey as a college student, and in today's
Yeah.
time, India is witnessing a wave of entrepreneurs. So, what is your one advice for aspiring entrepreneurs, especially young minds, and how can they effectively manage your academics while building a venture? Like you mentioned, at your time, attendance criteria was not strict, but today
Yeah.
every college follows a 75% criteria. So, how can student effectively manage their time, and what is one golden advice for them?
I mean, see, I think uh, maybe I was a little lucky with the fact that my college was a little lenient with attendance. But I think what happens is eventually you take that risk, right? I mean, forget college students for once, right? I know that that's a part of the question, but think of how typically startups come to be, right? Like somebody is working at a job, they're super passionate about an idea, so they start taking some time out of the job to build something, and they probably set some targets for themselves, right? Saying that, look, if I build it, or if I see this kind of attraction or that kind of an engagement, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my full-time job and I'm going to get into building this full-time. So I think it could be somewhat similar for students also, where the amount of time you give to your venture could sort of be planned on the basis of what kind of engagement or traction you're seeing. I mean, college does take a good amount of time in the day, but it does not take all the time of the day, right? You still have one entire half of the day after college to sort of work on things. So I guess that's ample time to try and experiment with things. It's also super important, I think, to just keep abreast of all the new developments that are happening in the world, in the technological world, and to try and see what can I do with that to solve a consumer pain point. I think that, I mean, the more you can sort of experiment with different things, I think the higher the chance of you eliminating what's not working or finding what's working. Um, and one of the other pieces of advice that I'd have, it's often, what ends up happening is that we are so passionate about the things that we want to do or the things that we want to build that we want to ship the most perfect product out there, right? Like I've often spoken to students, and let's say you have a business idea, right? You'd want to build an app and you'd want to build every possible thing that you can, but then you'd have the constraint of maybe not having enough financial resources, right? And how do you sort of counter that, or how do you get your way around that? So I think what one piece of advice is to always figure out whatever idea it is that you have. It's okay even if you're able to build some sort of an MVP that's like maybe 50% of the final product, but try it with consumers instead of like continuously trying to improve it without even exposing it to consumers, right? So build something. It's okay if it's not the most perfect versions. Put it out there, get some feedback from customers, and then improvise, right? I think that way there's continuous encouragement that you sort of keep getting and continuous feedback. So I think that's an important, sort of piece of advice that I'd like to share.
We all would love to implement this in our life. So, my next question is with Quizop, Astrozop, and others, you have expanded beyond gaming. How do you manage these diverse platforms? If we may know, what other jobs would you like to introduce in future?
I think that's a very interesting question, and it allows me to speak to you about something that is very, very core to what we're trying to do here. See, the idea with the different Zob products, even though they're all very diverse, diverse sort of content areas. One is astrology, one is cricket, and so on. The idea is that what's common between all of them is that there are several things actually. So one is that our business model at Gamezop is to partner with other apps and websites who have a lot of users, and to go to them and to tell them that look, if you add games onto your app or onto your website, your users will be able to play our games. There is no downloads, none of that that's needed. They can play our games inside your app or inside your website. And if they like the game, they'll come back to your app to play it, which means that your app will have more retention, right? The number of users that you have, they'll keep coming back. And we then tell our app and website partners that if you add our games, whatever ads we show and whatever money we make by showing ads, we will pass on a portion of that revenue to you. So we don't go to apps and websites and tell them that, you have to pay us to add games. What we tell them is take our games, grow your engagement, grow your revenue, right? And as a part of the process, we also grow. Now, what's common between all the Zop products is just like GameZop, even CrickZop or QuizZop or AstroZop, they are all driven on the back of partnerships, right? We drive users to them on the back of partnerships. Like today, if I was to go to, let's say, an HDFC bank and tell them to add games in their app, it might not be a very natural fit, right? But if I had, let's say, Finance Zop or Money Zop, where we talked about the latest mutual funds or just, I don't know, the stock market or financial advice and so on, right? That might be a little bit more of a natural fit, or at least it may allow me to get in the door with them and have a meeting and pitch something to an HDFC bank. So the idea of different Zop products is to expand the kind of partnerships that we can do. Not everybody is interested in adding games in their app, and that's okay. That's something that we understand. But the moment we expand into more Zop products, it allows us to cater to a wider range of app and web partners to bring users to our platform. The second part of what multiple Zop products allows us to do is our monetization or our revenue comes from ads, right? And who are giving us ads? They are different advertisers, right? Now, let's say that Kia, the car company. Let's say Kia is a big advertiser in India, okay? And if we were to go to Kia and if we wanted to tell them that, look, give us a big campaign of your ads that we'll run on our platform, they would ask us, do you have car enthusiasts? Right? I'm obviously oversimplifying it, but the idea is that they would ask us where are the relevant users on your platform for my product, right? Which is, say, the Kia car. Now, we could say that, okay, fine, we have a car game on Gamezop, or we could say that, again, we have AutoZop, which is, let's say, an automobile product altogether, and we'd advertise your brand there, right? So the idea of increasing Zops is, on the one hand, to be able to do more partnerships, and on the other hand, to also be able to tap into more types of advertisers, right? If a Dream 11 is spending a lot of money during IPL on advertising themselves, then CrickZop, which is a dedicated cricket platform, is a better place or a more stronger offering for us to take to Dream 11 for them to run their ads as compared to, say, having one cricket game in Gamezop, right? So that's the idea of expanding into different Zop products. There's also a lot of other technological layers which are common between all of the products, but yeah, broadly, that's the idea. It's not so tough to manage. I mean, it's tough from the sense that every new space that we get into, it needs its own set of learnings. But what we've tried to do is we've tried to have different tech teams, different product teams for every product, and it's allowed us to sort of expand to 5 products at least so far. And yeah, I mean, we are also learning in the process. In terms of new Zop products, we have 5 right now, and that's a lot for us to manage. We're also learning. I mean, I guess maybe finance or automobile, maybe interesting sort of Zop products down the line, but they are not in the works right now.
Being in this gaming industry for so long, are you excited for GTA 6? Because like I'm quite interested to relive that particular nostalgia.
I would say that so I've not played games on the PC or console in very very long. I think it's become more of a mobile thing now. But
Mm.
yeah, I would say that GTA, the whole GTA universe was the first set of games that exposed me to like this open world kind of concept and so on. So I think I'm super excited It's also, I think, one of the most expensive games to have ever been built, right? So also super excited to see what that'll be like. I'm not sure if I'll end up playing it though. Like I'm more of a now, I don't know, it's a very diverse set of games I play. I mean, like sometimes I'm just playing chess, which is extremely simple, and sometimes I'm playing Call of Duty, which is a little more graphics intensive. So
Mhm.
I don't know, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what that game does to the industry.
Said that, see, we know you are in the gaming industry for so long. So, like, how much of your time do you spend playing games, like from your college time? Were you a person who used to play games a lot of times, or it was that you pitched a idea to somebody and you then thought, oh, I can convert it into a business or something? How did it, like, how was it?
It's a little different. So I've spoken to people, and like there's a whole long chat we could have about this around blockchain games and whatever. But I've spoken to people who, from their childhood, know for a fact that they want to do something in the gaming space. They're so passionate about gaming, etc., etc. It wasn't like that for me. I think it was more driven by the fact that, like, I've obviously enjoyed games always. I genuinely felt that there was an opportunity in removing the friction of app installs. But again, I also thought that it was a good opportunity, right? Like at that point in college, if I felt something was a better opportunity, maybe, I don't know, as an example, it's a hyper local food delivery, then I'd have probably tried my luck in that, right? So it was more a matter of like timing it to the right opportunity, I'd say. And as far as how much time do I spend playing games, I think now it's increased a bit. I've started playing Call of Duty Mobile a little bit again, and it's very hard to keep track of time when you're playing. I'd say maybe, I don't know, maybe half an hour to an hour every day is what I spend playing games. I mean, yeah, like more or less, I would say somewhere around that. Yeah, I was definitely playing a lot of Call of Duty even during the Corona days.
So Yashash, like we all have some business idea here and there throughout our lives, but what is the exact process of actually converting that idea into a business? Like what steps should we follow? Like how to approach family to give money, or like how to actually implement the idea?
I mean, if any of you have any ideas, we could talk about it. But what I would try and do is, I would try and, like I was saying, earlier in the podcast also, what I would try and do is I try and see what's the cheapest possible way in which I can build like some version of my idea, right? Like if it's whatever it is, right? If it's, I don't know, let's say laundry service, or I don't know if it's food delivery or grocery delivery. Like maybe you want an app, and maybe you want customer service and this and that. But whenever you read stories of these guys who built these startups, let's say they were initially doing it themselves. They were managing it via WhatsApp groups instead of an app. So there are very cheap ways to try some sort of an idea and to figure out, is my customer going to keep coming back to me for this? Like, let's say, if you think of the likes of Blinkit and Zepto, right? If I wanted to start a business like that, let's say there's no hyper local 10-minute food delivery right now, okay? And I wanted to start that. I would not want to build an app and this and that just to figure out if it's going to work, because that's going to cost a lot of money. But instead, what I would probably try and focus on is having one guy, maybe my house help. I would try and focus on having one person as a delivery guy. And maybe in my society, I would distribute pamphlets saying whatever you need, you'll get delivered in 10 minutes. Just message on this WhatsApp group. And I'd maybe just talk a bunch of stuff in my house. And that way, what I would be able to test is, if people get delivery within 10 minutes, do they keep coming back to me? Right. And if they do, then it gives me some data. I don't need to then take it to my family, because my family might have their own conceptions around what to do, or like so on and so forth. But I could take that data to a VC fund and show them that, look, I wanted to build an app and I want to have delivery drivers, this, that. But I tried this in my own society, and with these 100 customers, even after 3 months, I have 60 customers ordering every day. That's like a fantastic thing to show, right? And that is an easy way to start. Like, imagine if you had to do this, how much would it cost to just print something on a piece of paper and distribute it in a society? Not much money, right? But if you have to build the whole app and this and that, it's a lot more expensive. So yeah, I think to build anything, it's important to try and think of what's the cheapest, like to try and deeply think about what's the cheapest way that I can build a version of my product and test whether customers are going to keep coming back for it.
But you started your own venture with him. So how you convinced him? How you decided to get together on the board?
I think it was a uh, so obviously, see, it's not like a one discussion thing, right? That okay, like you don't have to necessarily pitch it in that way. Ki, okay, you have to leave everything and join me. He was always aware of what was happening, what is it that I was doing, and he, in his own work, was also interestingly working on some similar projects. Like I was saying, he was working on a study of Flash. So a Flash was a technology by Adobe, which was earlier used to power a lot of like Flash games and Flash media and so on. And Flash died after Apple made some announcements and changes on their systems. So there was like a void or a gap that was left in terms of what is the technology that will power media on the web. And so he was in the middle of studying some of those things, and for him also it seemed like a very interesting opportunity. He was aware of what was happening here, and then obviously if you're brothers, there's a very different level of trust that comes in. It's very easy for you to, I mean, it's you don't have to worry about so many other things that you would otherwise have to worry about if you were starting out with like a random stranger as a co-founder. So it was a very natural fit. Both of us were very excited about the opportunity, and yeah, it just happened that way. It wasn't like a 1 hour convincing session or anything like that. Yeah, I think just to add to that, I think it was definitely a bigger piece of risk for him than for me because I was still in college, so I didn't have as much risk in doing a startup. But for him to leave everything and to sort of get into doing this, I think that was a much bigger risk that he took. Yeah.